Good morning. I will introduce myself first, and then I would like all of you to introduce yourself to the audience. More or less, we know each other through the group created in WhatsApp and through emails shared by Marwa. So my name is Temur Jafarov. Presently, I work for the SME Development Agency of Azerbaijan, and I used to be a CEO of the I used to be a CEO for the main payments provider company, which was serving, let's say, 5% of our country's GDP. So it was a pretty big company back then. And then I switched to the government sector in order to help SMEs and to bring some more benefit to our economy and to business in general. So I will pass this microphone to those who don't have it. Would you please also introduce yourself?
Good morning. We're still morning. My name is Andrew Yuri.
Voice up, please, so as we can hear you. Yes.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Andrew Yuri. I'm Executive Director of Phoenix AmeriCapital. A bit about myself. 25 years, I believe, in finance. I started off on Wall Street, and I've worked pretty much on at least 4 continents by now. I've worked in Europe. I advise mostly investment banks, ultra-high net worth individuals, family offices, and what else can I say? We're a boutique practice. We do a lot of we focus on IPOs. We've got a good team in the U.S. that's supportive for our emerging market practice of finding targets for the listed IPOs we've worked with. Last year we did about $2 billion worth of transactions. This year we're on course for another 2, hopefully doubling it to 4. So that's just us in a nutshell, what we do at Phoenix. Thanks very much.
Still good morning. My name is Alan Mukhir. I'm a founder and the managing director of Navigrowth. It's a training company specialized in project management. I believe in project management as a mindset. That's why we teach project management starting from 10 years old, project management for kids and teenagers, project management as a lifestyle, or what we call project manage your life. I've been in the field of project management since 2003. I adore project management, and I believe of its impact in our lives. Thank you.
Good morning again. My name is Nermeen Mugmin. I work as a CEO for Berlitz Egypt. Berlitz Egypt is a franchise from Berlitz International. We provide language and cultural training in the training and development industry. We have several units performing as centers, training centers all over Egypt. We are based in Egypt. I came with a previous experience, mainly majority of it was in the HR. So I used to work in different HR functions for more than 18 years. And the last 6 years, I started to perform the position of the CEO. So I wear the 2 hats, almost hats of where you have to develop and respond and implement initiatives related to the human and people, and the other side where you have to take sometimes decisions related to the business and people at the same time. So nice meeting you all.
Hello everyone. Still on the morning part, so good morning to you. My name is Hanan Al-Basha. I am the founder of The Business Doctor, which is a boutique SME and startup growth advisory firm. I'm also the co-director of the Founder Institute, which is the world's largest accelerator program out of Silicon Valley, so responsible for Qatar and GCC. And I'm also the senator for Egypt with the World's Business Angel Investment Forum, so the WBAF. My passion and my mission is to empower women in business, well, along with the men, but also the other passion is about sustainable growth of SMEs, talking about internationalization, access to markets, which is why we're here today, and just about being better people and better economies overall. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Jose Fernandez. I am entrepreneur, investor. I am executive in the agri-food industry. So I'm very much involved in the innovation ecosystem in the UAE, but also in Europe. I do serve boards, do corporate equity, and it's a pleasure. I just spoke in another panel, so let's carry on.
Right. Yes, we're still in the morning. Good morning. My name is not Leila Sohaili, but simply you can call me Leila because they think that my name is a bit too long to be remembered. So my name is Leila. I'm wearing two hats here. Is of course the head of business development and advisory of Salam Enterprise from Brunei. Darussalam Enterprise is actually a focal agency to support MSME development in Brunei. We are not a government sector. We are the interface, so we play a neutral role in supporting our MSMEs. So we do talk to our businesses as well as to the government, policymakers, but we are the implementers. I'm also wearing a hat of, chair of APEC SME Working Group. So SME Working Group is actually a forum within APEC where there are 21 member economies. It's a platform, for us to exchange ideas, best practices, share information, talk about policy, policy guidelines, policy promotions. So, yeah, we've done a lot in terms of supporting or create, tools, and perhaps, guidelines that, APEC member economies can potentially adopt and, implement. So yes, so opportunity.
Are we still in the morning part? Just made it. Good
Minutes
morning.
left.
Good morning. I'm Nangula Wanji. I'm from Namibia. I'm the chairperson and the CEO of the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board. It's a public agency in the office of the president. So I've been in the office for just over a year. So before that, I was an auditor. I was a country senior partner for PricewaterhouseCoopers in Namibia, where I've served for about 24 years. So I'm an auditor by profession. And I think I got to this position because I kind of felt like I've audited too much, and then I started worrying about the economy because economics was also part of my subject at school. And I shared my ideas with our president then about our economy and how I believe, of course, promoting investment, but also building small businesses in Namibia can help our economy to grow. So I shared my vision. I kind of I gave my notice at PwC, and I shared my vision with the president on what I wanted to do. And he said, no, I think that should be done by government. Don't you rather want to come and join us? So that's how I ended up here. And today we are responsible for investment promotion as well as coordinating MSMEs across all levers of the economy in Namibia. Thank you.
Thank you, dear participants. So, yeah, please.
Yeah, I wanted to be the first one to say good afternoon, but I think I saw you keep talking time. So good morning, my name is Assam Al-Disi. I'm the Director of Strategy and Policy at Dubai SME. Dubai SME is, the long name is the Mohammed bin Rashid Establishment for SME Development. We're part of Dubai government under the Department of Economy and Tourism. So if you know about UAE, we have the 7 emirates and each one has its local government, but you also have the federal government. So we are responsible for entrepreneurship and SME development at Dubai level. We've been there since 2002. We're one of maybe the first agencies in the region, and my personal background is I've been always working in strategy and public policy since I started. My background is originally engineering, so I'm a telecommunication engineer, but then the master's was in somehow engineering management, and ended up doing a lot of the policy advocacy work for the government.
Thank you very much. So before we start, I would just like to announce some inputs. So the first part is that this meeting, this roundtable, will be co-chaired by me and Khalid. And I would like to note that the composition of this roundtable is really amazing because we all come from more or less, you may say similar, but also different sectors of business and government. But we share the same idea, which is to help SMEs, and the topic of this is the access to market. So if you don't mind, the roundtable is actually, we're going to have a regulated time, which is 2 hours. And after 2 hours, we're all free to go. Yeah, and also the good thing is that all our discussion will be, we're going to have meeting notes about that, which will be shared then. And the purpose of this roundtable is to outline maybe the key problems that SMEs face. And there are, of course, a sort of standard set of like tools that can be applied in order to resolve these issues. But within the discussion, we're going to touch some aspects of this problem which refer to cultural difficulties or differences, and also the human capital issue. So to make it more interesting for us and for the audience, and to actually bring value. So the purpose of this roundtable is to generate value as of a list of certain smart and very applicable ideas. So, Mr. Khaled, please.
Well, yesterday we were discussing how we can get benefit of this amazing experts, and we decided to make it as a free-will discussion, not just a Q&A as a traditional way. We are a mix of SMEs, someone who is supporting SMEs, whether women or men, and maybe some others are wearing the two hats. So let's start our discussion from your perspective. What are the challenges, the actual challenges that either we are facing as SMEs, or we are supporting the SMEs as mentors or coaches or so on, and in the part of entering new markets, or even other issues that raised through the last 2 years. So may I start with you?
I would say I would consider right now the current challenges that most of the SMEs are facing, which is that most of the SMEs, they adapted their strategy and tried to introduce new solutions. If I talk about the SMEs, try to adapt to new solutions, business solutions and new products, and introduce them to the market. However, the challenge now is that they are not sure whether these new products will last longer and they can really substitute their own core products. Let's say most of these SMEs, though they are innovative entities, they had like a commodity product. They rely on it, and for many years they were that was easier for them to predict the sales and revenue and the value of investment they are going to put in that product every year. As for the new solutions, most of us, if I talk, for example, about the trading industry, we had to move to the digital solutions. We adapted our product, or we customized our product to be like hybrid training. We used hybrid training, or some online, delivering online classroom training. Yet now we need to invest more and in much attractive tool to engage more customers to us and to expand. So this type of investment required money, and since the size of the SME is relatively small in terms of employees and sales as well, so we are tied with these decisions of it's not easy for us. It's very difficult, really, and it's a real challenge to take such type of investments in the new innovations. From my point of view, it could be opportunity, a great opportunity, if we take some risks in some areas. In the products that we intuit by ourselves as a business owners, or as an entrepreneurs, or executive leaders for the SMEs. those products will be really promising, and we need to go and invest in them and put some money, and also to provide all necessary tools that can support this these type of products to access new markets. So I think that could be one of the real challenges that we are facing for the time being. It's the decision related mainly to the investment, considering the limited financial resources that most of the SMEs are struggling in this area, especially have the running and fixed cost, high running fixed cost versus the income for the time being.
Adding to, this is my role to add when I can add some information. So just imagine that before the pandemic, only 10% of SMEs, like I'm talking about MSMEs, sustained for more than 5 years. So this is a thing this is a fact to mention and to realize, and how much pressure they did SMEs throughout the world experience during pandemic and after pandemic. So this is already a fact to be noted and to think about. So yes, the problems of SMEs are really serious, and we can expand on that further. Yeah.
I will actually expand on the fact you just shared. 85% are not going to make it past the 10-year mark. So that's an extra extension to that, which is very unfortunate, but it is their life. Based on, again, what Nermeen was saying, and I'm just going to put on that, we're talking about the post-pandemic era. I mean, technically we're still in it, but let's think about the decision-making issue here. SMEs think about access to markets, i.e. we're talking about expansion. And before, it was kind of easier to say we're making an informed decision. How do we go and access a market? We look at the network, we look at our capacity, we look at what kind of markets we want to enter, the networks we have within within the new market. And also part of it is what kind of market, what kind of product and service are we offering? Pandemic made the 1 + 1 = 2 equation, that was a bit easier, made the 1 + 1 = -100 or +1,000. So that kind of decision-making process is no longer valid. So I think there's also a transition now that the challenge that SME leaders have to face is making as informed as possible decisions, and then from that perspective seeing how we can pivot and change. Access to market is dependent on a number of things. So the decision-making process goes between the speed that we're expanding to, the kind of the magnitude, the scale. Are we looking at one market? Are we looking crossing border from UAE to Qatar? Are we looking from UAE to Azerbaijan? So these are the kind of things that we have to do. And once we go there, what kind of capacity do we have within our human capital, within our production facilities, within even our service industry, so that we can spare to do that. I've seen examples where we spoke about franchising companies from UK to Qatar, and they're here, and I'm like, okay, guys, I need this. And they're like, huh, we didn't think about that. So there's a whole array of decisions that need to be made, but more importantly, the infrastructure, in terms of the humans, in terms of the processes, so even your SOP, your standard operating procedures, your expansion, your marketing, your digital presence. I'm talking about the digital footprint since yesterday. All of these things need to accommodate that expansion, that's access to a new market, that knowledge of the localization that you need to do. The elements all contribute to the success, and that success, as we have also seen, could be short-term or could be long-term. But nothing now in this new time and age of the digital and the knowledge-based economy, the long term is no longer than 1 to 3 years. Before we used to set the strategy and say, this is our 5-year strategy. That's not valid anymore. We're talking 3 to 6 months now even. I don't think we can even have the luxury of a 12-month strategy anymore. So these are all the challenges that we are waking up every day to new dynamics. I say that my doctorate degree, which was about internationalization strategies for the sustainable growth of SMEs, is mostly invalid right now because I have to think of new ways how to conduct international business. Is it just about, do I have an Instagram page and I'm selling to new markets? Or do I have to look at what kind of supply chain is there, what kind of networks, what kind of chambers of commerce, what kind of conferences can I go to talk about making business on a different market? So these are just some of the things.
Again, based on our tradition, just a couple of weeks ago I was on one blockchain conference. I'm not going to name it because otherwise it will be an advertising. And I come from a traditional finance world, and I was quite astonished to see a completely new culture, a new way of doing business, and it was a blockchain conference. So they are also SMEs, and they are those kind of SMEs who don't have boundaries at all, and who have completely different ways of access to finance, access to market, access to knowledge. And it's a completely new world. And when I looked at all these young guys, and I was the only one who was wearing a suit, you know, I realized that, as you say, the time goes a lot faster than we people from the traditional business world are trying to adjust. Sorry, yeah, please.
No, I mean, I would like to add on this point, but before that, I have to say I have to leave at 10 to 1, okay? So it's going to be afternoon, I guess. But yeah, unfortunately, I have to attend another meeting. See, we were already shifting from in many patterns of consumption, of using services and so on and so forth before pandemic. Now, through the pandemic, all these changes accelerated exponentially. So we are talking about many SMEs that will have to create markets rather than follow markets. So they will have to create new markets. And I think it's we need to find a balance on where to support, and especially from the government perspective, right? You have to identify, okay, these are the, let's say, the segments that will experience this exponential growth, and then that will create another legion of SMEs that will serve these companies that in 2 years won't be a SME anymore. For example, the cloud kitchens. We were talking about Itopi the other day, right? I met the founders 4 years ago. They were launching their business, and now it became a unicorn in no time. So you have so many companies that are serving them now as service providers or suppliers and so on and so forth. They are SMEs, most of them. So this is the beauty and the nature of an ecosystem. So you have to build and to support each one, and especially try to identify which one will be drivers of that growth that will happen in the ecosystem, right? So this is just my 2 cents.
You don't want to add to that?
You know, I realized that because Jose is leaving in let's say, in 35 minutes, I don't want to take any more time, you know.
All right, okay, I'll try to make it very quick here. Okay, the way how I see this, there's 2 angles, okay? There are 2 angles. Yes, we are the agency to support. I'm sure that, you know, I mean, there are also challenges on the side, okay? We'll have to make sure that, you know, we're providing a truly enabling ecosystem to support the development of our small businesses especially. But on the business side, I believe that, you know, readiness is very important. Their readiness, okay? Yes, once you launch, I mean, you have perhaps, you know, very good business idea. Yes, you may want to launch a business, but are you ready to venture into that, you know, business world? Ready in terms of your resources, you know, your financial capacity, you know, in terms of your strategy, you know, in terms of your manpower. So to me, that's very important. You should, I mean, I'm not an entrepreneur myself, but I am actually, I mean, I've observed this for so many years. You know? So you have to be ready for that, you know. I mean, even way before you launch your business, start your business. I mean, you must make sure that, you know, I mean, this is what you need to, you need to set people on it, very, your foundation needs to be very strong, okay? So that's how I see, where our MSMEs, the problems, the cause of the problems coming in. Support programs are there, training and development, capacity building, access to, capital, funding. But again, back to the readiness mindset, I'm sure that, even if you give them, whatever amount of, funding, but if you're not ready mentally, you're not ready, in terms of your, institutionally, I think that's not gonna, the chance of you, making it there, I think that's gonna be a bit perhaps, slim, so you have to have that, strong foundation from the very beginning, even at your business ideation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think SME challenges, yes, they are general, but they can also be country specific. And I think looking, for example, in the history of Namibia and where we are, we've got very, very specific SME challenges. Yes, we just celebrated our 32nd independence, and of course we were a colony of South Africa until 1990 and suffered from the apartheid law that was there. And because of that, and you have got a significant part of the community and of the society that was excluded from the economic activity, that characterizes the challenges and the community that you find. And therefore, our challenges are also very country specific. Now, a few years ago, I attended the women event and somebody made a comment of saying women are over-mentored and under-sponsored. And I think that is the same when it comes to MSMEs. We all talk about MSMEs, we want to do something about MSMEs. Everybody has got it as a buzzword, but it looks like nothing is moving. Why? And I think the challenge is what we have. Everybody is looking at it from our point of view. And the old saying, when what you have is a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. And therefore all of us are bringing our own specific solution to the challenges. Of course, I'm new in this environment and my role is a coordinator. And therefore my role as a coordinator is to talk to everybody and ask, what is happening? So I'm now, and I told you I'm 1 year, so I'm speaking to everybody and I start, for example, with the MSME. And the characteristic of MSMEs, it comes from a history of people that, yes, they were excluded and now they need to become part of the economic activities. And therefore, most of them are operating in a macro environment, also in an informal environment, and therefore their businesses are not formalized. And yes, getting data and getting information is a challenge and you cannot get that. And when you ask them, why are you not doing this? Many times, if you get somebody like me, yes, I come from a family that is looking up to me to provide, and therefore I could not afford to take risks. And that is the society of many of our people. They could not afford to take risks, and when you need to do a startup, you need to take risks. So why are you not producing more? Because yes, if we're talking about market access, maybe let me start back. You go to the person who should provide market access. Why are you not giving MSME market access? Not the quality is not good, the supply is not stable, the price is not right, and many of the procurers in Namibia are not based in Namibia because most of the organizations are multinationals, and when you approach them, they will tell you our procurement department is in South Africa, and therefore we cannot do it from here, and that gives you a challenge. And now you go to MSMEs. Well, why are you not doing it? I cannot afford it, and therefore many MSMEs, they are doing their business on a part-time basis while they are working, and therefore they don't give focus on it. And then they tell you, funding is a problem. I don't have a market. And you go to the funder, well, they don't have equity. And because they don't have equity, then there is also no, I cannot give debt because the business plan is not working out. And now you speak, and it is this cycle of going, and you need to do a root cause diagnosis of why. Now, what must we do? And of course, that's where I think our president then realized we need to have a coordinating activity so that we can bring together a platform of having a conversation together with everybody on the table. How can government make sure that we are not only policy makers, we are not only enablers in terms of setting policy, in in terms of also being an off-taker, but we are also coordinating across all levers, because government is spending money in MSMEs, development partners are spending money, even sometimes investors have got their programs, but why is it not moving? And yes, I think the solution lies in bringing everybody together and saying, this is definitely not a hammer, not a nail. So please, let's not bring a hammer here. What we need is this solution. And we make sure that to each and every one of the MSMEs and to each and every one of the challenges, we bring a solution. So I think one comment that I made somebody was, if somebody tells me more about capacity building, I will lose my mind, because that's what we do. Build capacity building. As I know, MSMEs need market access. So we need to find out, yes, if capacity building is what they need to get market access, then so be it. But that is not the only challenge that they face. They face many more challenges.
In addition to what was said, I would like to add the thing that one comment is that we are, in order to know that you have an access to market problem, you have to realize that you need to access the market. And there is a big gap in knowledge, in business literacy throughout the countries, throughout the regions. And I've joined our agency like 5 or 6 months ago, and what I realized that in certain regions, so when we at this round table or around this exhibition hall, when we talk to people, people come from business background, who are pretty successful, or who are aware of the, like I said, the theory or the practice, but we don't realize, but when we talk about market access, some MSMEs don't even realize that they have this problem, and there are a lot of opportunities behind that. So the education in MSME sector is, I believe, is a very crucial point, because that's the building, that's the fundament where you can build a successful development of MSMEs. And as a representative of the agency, our strategic focus now, and we're going towards a sharing economy in the future. So I would suggest to all agencies or organizations involved in that to have a lot of focus on this and on the content of those webinars, seminars, and etc. And maybe even to develop a certain tool. I did a very nice example that nobody would believe 20 years ago that our grandfathers and grandmothers would be able to use WhatsApp or smartphone. But it made so easy, it's made so user-friendly that people, without even knowing how it works, they start using that. So that's how accessible the knowledge about business growth and development should be. Please.
Thank you. After listening to all the inputs, so try to build on it rather than repeating the same challenges. From our point of view, if I want to relate to market access, at Dubai level, we have identified the local market and then international. So for the local market, we've been running a program called the Government Procurement Program since 2002. And it was by a decree from His Highness to allocate 10% of all government procurement budget to SME members. What we noticed during the last 20 years, we were turning 20 this year. When we started, the challenges were more on the building the capabilities of SMEs, ensuring that they can provide to the government, ensure that they have the good quality standards so they can bid in the tenders and so. What we noticed is that we had to play two roles. One on preparing or qualifying the suppliers, but a big role will be also on changing the mindset of the government procurement officer, because end of the day they are employees, they will be audited, there will be questions, why you give this, why you took risk with this company. It's government money, you should give to somebody who's credible, you cannot just take risks with SMEs. So what we noticed is we had to build capacity both ways, for the SME side and from the government side. And the only way we could somehow run the program successfully is to engage all of these government employees. So, at the high level, when you have the Director General of Entity X and Entity Y, they will sign the MOU happily, and then the real thing happens. And then when you go to the procurement officer, he's an employee with like 10 things behind him, and he has to do it properly. And if he's used to deal with supplier X for the last 3 years, and this guy has good quality, why should I take risk and leave him and go to someone else? So we're starting somehow involving these guys from the government side, and because we're again a third party, we're a government entity, but we're like facilitating. We saw that the best way is to make these guys the actual heroes, the ambassadors. So I'll bring the procurement manager in entity X, Y, Z, and make them lecture SME owners on how to qualify, or what are the aspects I need from you to qualify you as a supplier. We started having matchmaking sessions between the government and the SMEs for sector-specific industries, and we know where are the large contracts. So running this, it took us quite some time until you try to change the mindset. And then currently we reached to a different stage where we are encouraging government to put their contracts as challenges. Instead of writing scope of work and ask people to bid for it, no, I'm a government entity, I will say, I will need this solution to solve this problem, help me. And I'll leave it open to SMEs to pitch, for entrepreneurs to try it out. And end of the day, no one is losing. We said the government entity will get all of these proposals, we will shortlist them. The top 3 will go into a certain process, like a boot camp, to help them prepare their solutions. And then the government will pick one and sign with him. So the winner will get the contract. It's not financing, it's not funding. We do have tools, like under the agency, we have the Mohammed bin Rashid Fund for financing, we have the Dubai Entrepreneurship Academy to train, and we have the Innovation Incubator. So we have the channels, but packaging the whole thing as an opportunity made the whole difference for both sides, the government and also the entrepreneurs. So again, it's like you're looking at the challenge, but in a different, practical way. But it's not only SMEs that they need like the support and the change. Also, government has to be changing.
Yes, supporting your comment. I mean, I would also suggest everybody to refer to recommendations of OECD, where it's explicitly written what steps should be taken. And when dear Essen was talking about the measures taken in Dubai, I mean, almost more or less the same measures are also applied in Azerbaijan. And what I saw is that, as you said, the changing of the mindset is that communicating to people that it's never late to learn, it is never late to, you know, optimize your knowledge to in order to be able to adapt it to your future goals. So thank you very much for your comment. Andrew.
So it's great actually to be the last one, because I actually can empathize or relate to some of the challenges that we're facing. I'm going to speak into this thing so you can hear me. So what we usually do and how to work with businesses and some of the challenges they face is try to, I'm from a finance background. I also have to be careful that everything, you know, I'm a hammer, and I use this phrase a lot, that everything doesn't start to look like a nail. In our business, we call it smart money, right? When you don't throw money at problems to solve them, you try to find solutions outside of capital. So what we do with businesses who come to us looking for capital is we try to align them with investment that meets their challenges outside of capital. What does that mean? So if a business is looking for capital and they're in the space of branding, we want to align values, their vision, to make sure that when they have an investor coming in, we work with also a lot of family offices. Family offices usually come in with as great strategic partners. So we're looking to be able to align strategic partnerships in terms of how we raise capital for the various businesses we work with. So we try to empower businesses by doing quote unquote the right things, right? Look, understanding what your vision is, what do you want to do, what do you want to achieve, Why did you start your business? Stick with your goals, continuously realign yourself, or adjust depending on the marketplace. What's interesting is that we're in a world that's changing so rapidly and with such dramatic changes. As my colleague said, 80% of small to medium-sized enterprises will not see the 10-year mark. You have to be very agile in how you adapt and how you face the current marketplaces. So for us as a business, what we had to do with COVID, we did a summit 2 years, I think the year before COVID started, just to try and bring our investors together with some of our best companies. You know, it was a meet and greet just to get people to be social. When COVID happened, where we can't do any more roadshows, what do? We can't travel from country to country, from business to business, investor to investor. So what we had to do to adapt was to adapt that model into a summit where we can bring everybody together for 3 days and do a 3-day roadshow. So you're doing back-to-back meetings where we can still get everyone in the same room, but once a year. So we've had to find creative ways to adapt and how we're able to raise capital and align businesses and investors together without putting them or subjecting them to the risk of COVID. Another issue I think they face, well, there are many. You can look at technology. Technology actually is more of a supporting measure to reduce costs and to effectively reach a larger marketplace. We work with businesses in how to enter new markets. We also advise government. So what we do in this case is we work with a group out of Australia. They're management consultants, and I like using that phrase. I love that phrase, by the way. We use that with them all the time. Where management consultants we work with, they come to the table with everything has to be a management consultant solution. Everything is not a nail. Think outside the box. How do you creatively solve problems for these businesses without continuous? And I had one project we're working on where they came in. Southern Africa, the government of South Africa we're working with. They asked us for a presentation, and the management consultants put a typical management consultant pitch together. And it's, hey guys, this is not what they're asking. We had conversation with them. They're asking, they're looking for capital, and they want to restructure, but you can't just put a pure management consulting restructuring practice to get a proposal together. How do you address their capital needs? So this is the challenge I see all the time when dealing with not just the governments, but the small and medium-sized enterprises, is how to align their capital needs with their business needs and try to do what we call smart investing. He's raising capital, but what are some of the other issues and challenges he's facing that a strategic investor can add without, and I shouldn't say without, but also enhance the amount of investment that's needed. So you're not throwing money at their issues, but you're able to invest in it, but also solve their challenges as a business without applying capital needs to it. So I think those are some of the things that we see as challenges small to medium-sized enterprises are facing.
It's a great discussion. What's noticeable is that almost 95% of what we got in our discussion, it's an internal challenges. It's not related either to the market, neither to the government, neither to the epidemic itself, and so on, which is amazing for me to catch these points. So let me summarize again. It's the decision-making process itself, whenever it comes to proposing new market or entering or proposing a new product and our prediction and so on, the making decisions itself should be in a different way from inside, not related to outside. We need the new dynamics in our way of managing our business as SMEs. It's not just entering a new market. No, it's a market creation. How we, as an SMEs, create a new market, not just enter an existing market and start fighting in a competition and turn it to a red ocean. But creation new market will make it a pure blue ocean.
Yeah.
The ecosystem support and the readiness of the SME, it's a core issue related to the internals of the SMEs itself. To what extent they are ready to start their business, their education, their awareness, their even knowing their needs, strengths and weaknesses. Again, it's one of the internal issues. The SMEs or MSMEs, as as the layout of it in Namibia, as a micro or an informal, doing their business as part-timers beside their own business, so it's something secondary, which make them cannot invest easily in their competition, producing higher quality and so on, and even the logistics or the supply chain internal. Maybe this is the external part of the SMEs, but I totally agree that mostly it's an internal issue. The knowledge gap and the education preparation for entering a new market, changing the mindset, which is again an external part related to the governments, how they see or treat the SMEs from their side as the governmental side. Being that unqualified to enter the business. Yes, I have a good idea and I'm ready to enter my business. Is it that easy? Are you qualified enough to start your own business? Again, it's an internal issue. And again, finally, with Andrew raising the awareness, yes, it's related to the internal awareness of the SMEs. I believe it's all about the internal side, not the external side. I believe Hanan want to add something.
I want to add something here. Is just also follow up on what everyone is saying. This term has been used over the last 2 years, agility. So we've been saying agile, agility, adaptability and all of this, and everything we said today are examples and representations of what agility is. It is about new markets, it's about thinking out of the box, it's about new decision making, it's about using every element, as you were saying, even the capacity building. What does it mean? I need to be agile using that. And I think this is the overarching challenge that has been coming for SMEs. What is agility and how do I become agile? I know there are certifications for it, but the real life agility, the on ground, is entrepreneurial mindset. How do I employ it in a way that serves me and serves my company, but more importantly, serves my economy? We're part of a bigger picture. And once we start seeing this, we were talking about the visions of the countries, the Vision 2030, the Vision 2070, how do we, and I'm sure Dubai and every government does this. What does it mean to me as an SME owner, as a startup? How do I employ this in my way of thinking? And more importantly, now what? How do I use this in my human capital or in my training or in looking at what the market is and how can I access it?
Something related to agility, which is it's a misconcept. Agility is not the certificate. Agility is the mindset. It's about the being, not the doing. Not doing agile means agility. It's how we think, how we adapt to changes, how we welcome changes and challenges, how we are flexible enough to maneuver in our action. This is, yes, it's entrepreneurial mindset. This is how we need to be agile, not to do the agile.
We have only 10 minutes to enjoy the company of Jose. That's why I would like him to speak.
So I just wanted to add one thing that is very relevant here. So it's not supporting existing businesses, SME, and to create new businesses, right? New businesses that are more resilient. So a new business, it doesn't mean that the other business has to be closed or wipe out. It's about adaptation. So many companies, for example, during the pandemic, were in the perfume industry. They started to manufacture hydroalcoholic gels, and many other companies that were, for example, in the hospitality, they were forced to shut down, but they still operate serving food to the essential workers or whatever. So those lessons are very important for us to understand that an ecosystem it's also something that has to be adapted to the new situation. So investing in new business creation, I think it's the key. And as an example, now we are through the Abraham Accords, we had access to Israel, that they call themselves the startup nation. Why is that? So I've been collaborating in some programs that are teaching as young as from the 15-year-old students how to become entrepreneurs. So in the previous session, Mohammed was saying, we are not ready, all of us are not entrepreneurs, right? That's sure, for sure. But we can maximize the amount of entrepreneurs there by providing the right tools, the right education. So many of these entrepreneurs won't become entrepreneurs because they become frustrated for whatever reason, maybe external reasons. They are not able to go through their startups and launch their projects and become successful or achieve the revenue or the break-even. But many of them is because they were not trained. So I agree that we have to train SMEs for the new normal, but we also have to train or to start the education in a much earlier stages. And I'm so sad that for you know, through this situation we have an additional challenge, that is these students that were for 1 year doing online education. I think we have missed a year, to be honest. This is my opinion. I have 3 kids, and I can see that. The type of stimulus that they are receiving when they are not in contact with the people, in contact with other students, the peer-to-peer learning, even the type of education that the professors, the teachers that are under a lot of stress, as we all were, it's different. So we have to reinforce that. This is I think it's a key exercise that we all have to do, and especially the government, and to work on that. And by the way, I have the experience, and I can prove that. So I have seen students as early as as young as 15-year-olds giving lessons on pitching startups to people that they are already mature entrepreneurs, right? Because they connect in a different way with these new consumers, these new markets. So just wanted to add that. And I have to leave.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to meet you all, and happy to be connected.
Thank you so much. Adding to what Jose said, I think that 80% of communication is non-verbal, yeah? So, I mean, maybe we also, the humanity, let's put it that way, learned to communicate with their eyes through the Zoom or, I don't know, other applications, and it was so difficult to communicate your emotions and stuff. You either had to raise your voice or to change the words, but sometimes when you're talking interpersonal, like tete-a-tete, vis-a-vis, you don't need that. With regards to the importance of SMEs, I would like to add one thing that I've been observing during past couple of years, is that governments throughout the world realized the importance of SMEs. So around 60% of employment is provided by SMEs. And if before the shift, and why I noticed that is, I noticed that when there are bilateral agreements and communication between the countries, it used to go only through, let's say, strategic areas of economy or other socio-political aspect. Now there is a lot of emphasis is given to SMEs, and that's a good sign. And I believe that, yes, a generation is formed within 25 years, after 25 years, and it's never late to start. What Jose said is to start teaching people from the school not even to be an entrepreneur, but just to think outside of the box, because that's what defines an entrepreneur mindset, I think. So, Khaled, would you like to add to this, or maybe to start another conversation?
Actually, adding and starting a new conversation, which is while revising the outputs of the first round, a question came up to me, which is, do SMEs know and accept that it's mostly about them, or they are living in the victim state or victim position? Since we all deal with
that's a very interesting question. Yes. Very challenging. Yeah, please.
Yes, I would like to link this with our previous conversation concerning the agility. I think it's all about, as you mentioned, the agile mindset and how we used to perceive the things and in our mind. So if I talk about innovation, for example, that most of the SMEs were believing that innovation that required R&D, big investments, putting money, investing, and that's it. I think after we pass through COVID-19, we can keep in innovation and continue with R&D, continue with the new ideas, but we can base it or rely more on the efforts and the idea itself and mindsets. So it's instead of standing there as in a victim place and thinking that we don't have money to finance or to support or to invest in those new ideas, let's exert more efforts. Let's think really in developing as much as possible ideas. So for sure one of them will be successful and will work. So it's and there's also a belief, the belief itself that if we believe in an idea and that will boom, and this will boom in this during this time. So I think never giving up that will make it will make it a reality in no time. Another one related to the agile mindset, also in accessing new markets. So we also used to perceive new markets as completely new markets that we never access them. While personally, from my personal experience, I found that new markets, it was like a diversified portfolio that contains also lost opportunities. Lost opportunities, that opportunities we received before during the previous years, but because we were quite stable financially, we were not interested to enter those markets. So unfortunately, we lost a lot of opportunities, and we didn't want to exert a lot of efforts to customize the product, to invest in those new ideas. So if we just define the new markets, and it could be a combination of lost opportunity, previously lost opportunity. It could be also it contains also the new needs that are raised after Corona. So the market has been completely changed, and there were. If I talk about training and development industry, though we faced a lot of country restrictions to close our centers, and most of the schools, universities were closed for more than 1 year. There was another big opportunity for the training company who work in the education and training sector to develop the skills of the sectors which were flourished during the Corona, such as the medical sector or pharmaceutical sector. If I give an example for Egypt, we had a national initiative and a national, let's say, according to the governmental vision, that they want to build the new capital in Cairo. So we customized a product especially for the construction field. We never thought before Corona that we could one day develop a product for the construction field. But because the government keep investing in the vision for the country, we found this is a new needs developed after Corona. So I think it's all about how we perceive things and how we need to shift our mindsets to be agile in implementing the concepts itself. So keep it as a keep it as a concept, but but change the implementation.
It's very interesting. My personal observation. So when this whole COVID-19 started, and I saw a pure demonstration of agility and of this entrepreneurial mindset when only let's say online retail was allowed. And I was passing through one of those passages that you go, under the way, and we have in some of them, we have nice shops there, so it has to be closed. And I see the guy putting a big sign like working online and with his WhatsApp number. So for him, it's not about e-com solution, it's not about e-trade platform or anything. It's about providing his number on WhatsApp, and what he does, he accepts orders and he basically physically delivers them to his clients. But this is, that person, even though it's not a corporation or anything, has a lot of entrepreneurial mindset in him than maybe companies which were treating the situation as victims and were waiting for the sun to come up from the other side. So, very good point. Thank you very much for that. Would you like to add something, Anna?
It's actually, again, based on what you were saying and what we were saying, it's victim mentality is very easy. And yes, there is a lot of victimizing of SMEs, to be honest. We have to look at what is available. We have to look at the mechanisms that are available. We have to look at the channels. A lot of what is actually developed for SMEs, whether we're talking on the governmental or semi-governmental purposes, are not communicated enough to the SMEs. So they don't know about it. Oh, it's like, oh, I didn't know there's an initiative that could support. I didn't know there was a women fund that I could tap into. I didn't know about that. So again, it's back to the connection, and I love what you were saying is that the connection that you have these channels and you have these, let's do the mentoring part, let's do the matchmaking. These are some of the things that could support less victimizing of the SMEs. The other part is, again, back to the entrepreneurial mindset, and a big chunk of it is resourcefulness. And that's how SME leaders need to think. We have, whether we're talking startups or MSMEs, it's limited resources. So yes, you could give them the money, but if they don't know what to do with it, then again, it's going to be limited. Or you can give them all the support that you want, but if they don't have the money to hire the people to provide the solutions, they're going to not be able to do it. So it is a matter of educating them on, you have 4 or 5 pools of resources. You have your time, you have your energy, you have your knowledge, you have your finances, and more importantly then you have your product or service. That's an equitable part that you can build on. How could you be resourceful with all of them? If something you don't have the money for, you can still spend the time and the energy developing the solution, and then the implementation or execution of the solution. Well, they're celebrating, so yay for them.
We can speak louder and all at the same time,
It's a startup reward, so they're good. But again, it's very easy to be a victim. And it is a lot more difficult to get outside, not outside of the box, to not see the box anymore and say, how can I do this? And that is one of the things that I have really embedded in my own learning over the past few years. Is it's not about why. Well, the why is very important. So once I've got the why, now it's like starting to say, how can I do this? Who can I talk to? What can I provide? And how can I come from a place of service and value? And this is the element of what builds up an SME.
I'm sorry, Khalid, just very applicable to our situation comment about awareness of the tools provided by the government to support access to market. Can you imagine that our agency literally created the e-commerce platform where those shops who didn't have an opportunity to trade online and were not as entrepreneurial as that guy, they could just place their products, and it was linked, the whole value chain was built in there. And people, due to lack of awareness or maybe due to maybe the gaps in communication, perceived it as a wow, the government now is going into the e-com business, and so nobody realized, because the perception was that before nobody was taking such good care of SMEs. So now when they see that there is a clear tool with an advantage and value for them, they perceive it as a potential risk, or maybe some, because we are also a young country with a young independent economy, a little more than 30 years. So people still maybe that generation might have, and that's how they raise their kids. So there is a kind of lack of trust, and that's also another point we can touch later if we inshallah have time. Please, Leila.
Oh, okay. So to me, okay, we're talking about perceptions here. Okay. Yeah, I think anyone have the right, to perceive things here. Be it, from the MSME side or from the government, the enabler side. But on MSME side, what I've always heard, listened to when it comes to, when you SMEs, they often ask questions. Is the government doing enough to support, to facilitate? I think that's a valid question. So because on the government side, there's a lot of things that we need to consider. We need to consider the policies. We need to consider the regulations. Whether our trade laws is, is really, really accommodating. We're talking about process, transparency, in the trading system. Are we transparent, with our tariffs, with the logistics costs and things like that. So to me, these are all valid questions that MSMEs should raise. Of course, side, in terms of again, yes, the market is there, but are there products, appealing to the market, is their pricing strategy right? Is their cost, right? Production cost is right? Do they have the volume, to produce, to cater to the market? So I think those are factors that, of course, we need to consider. But I still believe that, truly enabling, conducive environment or ecosystem to support or even to facilitate market access must be really there. To me, transparency is very important. Now with COVID, I think we need a timely, accurate information, a well-informed decision in terms of how we want to move forward with this global crisis. Because obviously it affects our global trade. It's very difficult for our MSMEs to really, touch the market now. So. Yeah, we can go on and talk about all these issues, the whole day, or even days, weeks, But yeah, there's a lot of factors that we really need to consider here. Both at the MSME side and the government. I think as you were right that we are being the enablers. I think we need to make sure that we have that capability to provide the right business advisory to our MSMEs. Sometimes, we're not entrepreneurs ourselves. We're not businessmen. We're not businesswomen. So, business can say, "Oh, who are you to say to me that?" Or who are you to give advice to me when you're not, when you yourself is not a, an entrepreneur. So I think that again really needs.
Thank you, Leila. Would you like to add something?
Thank you very much, but I think also Hanan has really touched on most of what I wanted to add. And the simple question is, I think what you have asked is, do MSMEs know that it is in their hand? And I think they do not know. And yes, it's a responsibility of two parts. Yes, they've got a part to blame, but all of us have got a part to blame also. Because yes, you are responsible for you. You start and you take responsibility, and if you've got a vision, a purpose, and so forth, and your why, you pursue it, and you find doors you open until you find the answer. And therefore you can never abdicate that responsibility and give it over to them. And therefore yes, MSMEs need to take responsibility. However, all of us also kind of need to take responsibility, because I think there is oversharing of information, and then also there is also to some extent no information for some MSMEs. So you've got this kind of two world of some MSMEs don't have information. Some of them have got too much information to the extent that they don't know how to process it, when to process it, where to go, and therefore instead of focusing on their business, they're moving from one training program, from one activity, from one event to another, and therefore focus is not there. And in that process, we are kind of misleading them. And then complex processes. I like what some government is doing, and that's something we want to look into, targeted government procurement. But for example, when I had a discussion with somebody from UN Women and somebody from our Ministry of Gender, they were talking about women, and they discussed something on capacity building, and that's why I said, no more capacity building. We need market access, or we need something else, no more capacity building. But the point is this one. The documentation, for example, for a woman or for an MSME to complete for a procurement bid, you need almost a math degree for you to complete that. So yes, the information is there, yes, you can get it, but you get disqualified at level 1 already because you cannot complete. So the point is, how can we simplify those processes? And therefore, probably the focus areas will be knowledge sharing, and then support in terms of incubation, in terms of acceleration. And yes, one of the first programs that we started as an institution is called K2G, Knowledge to Grow. And it's because, for example, in market access, we have realized 3 market access, I think, like you have indicated. We have got government access for government offtake, and then we have got export, and then we have got local private sector. And in most of those cases, there is programs targeting MSMEs, but they're not accessed. Why are they not accessed? And therefore, you have to have a conversation and see how you can help your MSMEs to access those markets and to share the knowledge with them.
I will share you the practical implemented tool we have in Azerbaijan. We also have this a certain share of government purchases covered by SMEs. And in order to simplify that and make it even more transparent, a government procurement platform, which is IT platform, was created, and all government RFPs are placed on that, and it is the algorithm of this application of this tool is written in a way when SMEs are more preferred and they get comparable grades. So this is the level playing field concept of the management in terms of this economical aspects. So that's how it is done, and now we see a huge like motivation and growing intensity of actions from SMEs in terms of state procurement. And with regards to, I'm giving you the practical tools about market access. And with regards to export, we have this export agency, which is actually aimed, it's their KPI is to promote export. And we have created a national brand called Made in Azerbaijan. And also, for example, our agency, we help them through this business development centers, as we call them, particularly for MSMEs, will help them to actually comply with all those guidelines and stuff. And at the state level, for example, it also takes a lot of effort from state. We have signed 50 bilateral contracts in order to tackle this double taxation issue and to open roads and to, you know, unify, let's say, certain import-export standards. So, of course, the government has to do a lot to help SMEs to be able to penetrate new markets and to access, if we're talking about external markets. But internally, of course, there are, I don't want to take all the time and talk, so Essam, maybe you can add something?
I'll try to be quick, and again, building up on the points raised by the different participants. So, going back to the point, victim or not, as a government entity, it's not our job to decide. It's up to the SME owner himself to decide if he's a victim or not. I think as you mentioned from the government side, we should do our best to reach out to everyone, to ensure that the facilities, the support, the guidance, the information is available, market access, facilitate, do the tools, and then leave it to the SME owners or the entrepreneurs to take it or not. If they can't, we can also help and support. So our approach is usually, as a government, we intervene when there is a gap, when we recognize there is a certain market failure that we have to address. If not, it's better to step away, encourage people, the private sector, to play it their own way. And a couple of examples I can share is, for example, when we spoke about having incubation centers or engaging schools at an early stage, back in 2002, we had our own incubation because there was no incubators actually in Dubai. Moving forward, in 2016, when we realized that a couple of them are being there, private sector is picking up, so we stepped back and we started encouraging, empowering, and also regulating incubators. So we give them the empowerment from the government side, but we realize that as government we cannot support everyone in every sector. I cannot support the tech guys, the manufacturing, the F&B, and it's better to have partners from the private sector who have the experience, but with support from the government to ensure that the guidance is there, the support is there. And this can be replicated in many areas. And involvement with private sector is very important, and engaging government at different levels is also important. So it's not only the problem of the SMEs or the entrepreneurs. A very practical example also is going back to the market access and the public procurement. As you mentioned, we have levels. Yes, we have the local government, we have the federal government, we have private sector partners, and we identified channels for each one of them. On the complexity of the process, we also try to simplify it for SMEs. So exactly as you mentioned, we have a centralized platform for all government tenders. We pre-qualify our SME members. When they are registered, their profile is accessible to everyone, so they don't have to resubmit track record and examples or whatever. But at the same time, for the government entity, they will know that there are 6 or 7 companies submitted bids for the tender, and 2 of them have this logo, which is the SME logo. So it's even easy for the procurement guy to know, okay, I have 2 SME members. But again, having the law and the tools are not usually enough. And again, we can speak about carrot and stick, but it's better to put it in a better way. So we have good engagement and support from leadership. And in our case, what we do is, at the end of each year, we have the names of the 60 local government entities, and the federal and the private sector, in a full page in the newspaper, full page on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, everywhere, showing the name of the entity and the amount. And the best top 3 entities across sector, they get awarded by His Highness himself. So for the Director General of that entity, he will always push his team to find out ways to support SMEs. I mean, we have the law. By law, they have to do at least 10%. But the law alone is not enough. Because if I don't want, I will just disqualify you for technical reasons, and I can do it. I mean, this is my job as a procurement guy. But it's like balancing the law and also the encouragement and empowerment of the different government employees. And there are a lot of examples, but at the end, as a government, we should be practical. Maybe again, what raises this is the victim or not. I cannot say. It's up to the SME owner himself to decide. He can be a victim and keep nagging about it, or he can take 10 steps ahead and jump and do something. But as government, I have to cater to everyone. I have to ensure that the channels are open, and the whole ecosystem is supportive. It's up to them and then take it or
not. So as someone who works very closely and intimately with entrepreneurs and being an entrepreneur, I'd say not having the victim mindset is a requirement to be an entrepreneur. You start your business because you don't accept things as they are, and you want to make a change or a positive change in society. So I'd say it's a requirement. It's something I know as an entrepreneur that brought me to this landscape. In addition to that, you can't also underestimate the importance of government. I love living in this country. I love doing business here because I know how this government responds in terms of if you have even the slightest issue. And I have never stopped to understand what you guys face on the other side, because the tools are so readily and easily available in this country for us entrepreneurs. And again, you should not have that victim mindset. Now, if you're in the mindset of how do I solve problems, and this is really key. I've been CEO of an oil company in Nigeria, for example, and when you work in some of these countries, you realize the importance of not accepting problems as they are, but how to always overcome them. So I think for me, for example, it's a norm that I'm always looking how to solve problems. That I would say is the mindset of a good entrepreneur. You're going to always accept that there are going to be problems, but it's your ability to overcome and solve them. And as I said in the UAE here, I find there are a lot of solutions. I know we had an issue last year, and not only were we able to solve it very easily and the will of the government institutions placed there to support us, but I'm always also in the mindset that if I have a problem, how do I help the next person behind me who's going to come and face the same challenge? So even after they were able to assist me with my issues, I work with them to also improve the market and the landscape, that if the next company is going to have the same issues, what are the measures in place for them so they're able to overcome and not face even the extent of the challenge that I had. So I'd say this is some of what I employ or what I use, or in my mindset towards not being a victim in this marketplace or in anywhere. An entrepreneur cannot accept that victimization mindset. You have to always be able to overcome, solve it, and leave a solution for the next company and the next person behind you.
Khaled, may I? I'm sorry, I know you. So again, my mind works in a way that looks at everything and then thinks of frameworks. And this reminds me of something, because we're all representative of a form or an entity of how we're supporting entrepreneurship. I think of it from the 3-4-1 framework. So the three are the roles: enticer, educator, enabler. The fourth is the entrepreneur, and they're all working towards the economy. So from my perspective, I see the enticer, or the government agencies, the semi-governmental agencies, their mind is to set that strategy, set the vision towards what everyone should be working towards, and also have the policies and have the the mechanisms to be able to go to the educators. That's everyone who works directly with the entrepreneurs, the incubators, the accelerators, the consultants and all of this. And then we have the enablers, the people with the money and the people with the access to markets and everything, to enable the innovation and the thought and the manifestation of all the ideas of the entrepreneurs, whether they're the micros, the small, the medium enterprises that contribute. We know now also that 99% of world economies are made up of SMEs, so they're major contributors to the economy, and I don't think we have to argue why economies are important. Economy is what sets your country on the map. It's what enables everyone to go above, well, hopefully for everyone to be above the poverty line, and for your country in that country-specific advantage that becomes a competitive advantage for the country and the global markets. And now globalization is not an option, it is a necessity for the survival of everyone. So yeah, thank you. Yeah.
May I chime in? Yes. I believe it was Jose. He touched on Israel, and I'm really grateful and glad in what's happening when I see this Abrahamic Accord, that we're able to work together in this region and be inclusive. I never thought that you can, and I heard him say something, I really wish he was here, that they're teaching entrepreneurship. I was under the impression it's something that it's a trait that you develop or that you're with. I never even imagined it's possible you can train it. We're in a country that attracts and promotes entrepreneurship, and I'm grateful that we're able to use the mechanisms here. And I hear you talk about, you know, procurement. And when I heard you speak initially, I just stopped to think how to even, I solve problems every day, not just for myself, but for other businesses. But when you're talking about how to, you know, formulate solutions and then get the people in procurement to make sure that they're empowering and involved, my mind started, and I like how you talk about, you know, how your mind works. My mind's always looking to solve problems. And I couldn't even stop to figure out how you would even attack some of the issues that you face. Please.
Okay, maybe to speak about this in a practical way. Usually policy making is a boring process where you do a lot of data analysis and then you have to meet a lot of people in committees and you go through different reviews, and usually even if you have an idea or a concept, it will take you 4 to 6 years maybe to have the new law somehow endorsed by the government. We've been through this earlier and we realized that we cannot work in this way. So we started doing what we call experimenting. So before going to the government, we launch initiatives. Initiatives are within our control. We can do whatever we want. So we do this as a program, not as a policy. We pick people who are aligned with us, whether they are government entities or private sector. And in 3 to 6 months, you can show numbers and results, practical, realistic, to the government, to the decision makers. So instead of doing the whole process of formulating the policy, we started doing a lot of these initiatives and showing impact somehow in an immediate way. And that's why we realized that, fine, you have this law and you can keep shouting and fighting and saying whatever you want on why he's complying and this guy is not complying, and you can keep doing this. Or you can have another way where you get the 7 or 8 entities that somehow are aligned and ensure you can show success stories. And I think it's also the same, even for entrepreneurs. You can sit in a classroom with people in, I don't know, they're studying management or whatever at the college, and talk about Steve Jobs and Walmart and all the case studies we all studied maybe in our university years, and then this is not relevant. And what we currently do as part of our, even the Dubai Entrepreneurship Academy, we bring our success stories, an entrepreneur, and I know that this guy is great in marketing. He will go and lecture. He gives that marketing course. The other guy is good in another area. So let the entrepreneur himself be there. And then maybe the point again that Jose raised is like start early. I mean, we used to do this at the university level, and then we realized it's a bit too late. I mean, you're talking to a guy who's studying accounting, and most likely he wants to work for a certain firm. So maybe entrepreneurship is not relevant. But we started doing this at high school level. We started doing this, and in the last 3 years, we started even at the KG level. And we have KG students, 5 years old, participating in the Young Entrepreneur Competition. And to be honest, being part of policy making, let's say this is the morning job, and suddenly afternoon you're running after kids in the mall, it's a totally different thing, but it gives us a lot of perspective on what the new generation is about. Plus, teaching entrepreneurship is not the conventional way, it's not about the stories and the books. We saw kids, again, 5, 6 years. They did everything by intuition. I mean, they were looking at the other kids, and oh, this guy colored his stand, and people are buying for him. The other time, he'll start having posters. This guy is selling, and we saw them. They're doing the buy 2 get 1 free the other day, and suddenly they are negotiating. So he learned how to negotiate. And suddenly they're running after people in the mall and tell him come. So, I mean, they experienced the whole process, and we saw this actually where people participated in this young entrepreneur competition. As government, we usually struggle to convince, again, government to allocate budget for such things because they want to see the impact now. And we saw them, we cannot have an immediate impact, but we saw that after 10 and 15 years, many of the entrepreneurs who come to our doors, they tell us, I was in the second cycle of YEC, I was in the fourth cycle. So they were there at school, but it's like you implanted the seed, and it's about trial and error, because they have to break that fear. They have to try it. If they read 100 success stories, let them try to sell one pencil 2-3 times, and let him feel that when he did that bundle the other day, somebody bought from him. This experience cannot be taught in schools in a conventional way. They have to experience it.
That's a pure demonstration of agility, as we were saying, on government level. And the perception of the government role is sometimes, I think, is wrong, because government should be also focused on KPIs, should also have a motivational scheme, because people, decision is made by people, whether you're in business or you're in government. And this is a pure demonstration of a clear target, a clear strategy, communicated at all levels, and a motivational scheme, and we see the result. So thank you very much. That was a really great demonstration and explanation of what you do and how you do it. And I believe that's it can be considered as a best practice case.
Isam, again, I want to thank you. Hopefully we'll speak more so I don't take too much time on the panel and let everyone else speak. You just said exactly what I think I said. I think entrepreneurship, and I like the example you gave, because what these programs are able to do is to identify people with entrepreneurial abilities. And I've come to realize that from traveling, it's not everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur. And it sounds like that's what you've done. You've got programs that help you identify, but it's not only identifying, but also is when you highlight someone has a trait, how do you encourage them to go out and take that bold step, or to keep working in that direction? I know when I was a kid, if I tell you some of the stories, I think you'd probably be laughing for too long. But I know what it was like for me when I identified that I had the abilities to be an entrepreneur, and it was something that, and in the U.S. we had something called junior achievement. I don't know if that exists out here, but I know for us, when we had junior achievement, that's where I learned I had the ability, and I started to work in that direction. And again, the role of government cannot be understated or even ignored. You still do need to have the framework to encourage entrepreneurs, but also the legal environment to support them and empower them. Like I said, I know when I have issues in this marketplace, if it's legal, it's a matter of a simple phone call, sitting with the right people, and the way you feel when they attack the issues and how they respond. And you talk about passing laws and policy making. The readiness and speed at which laws are enacted in this country, in this marketplace, I think that makes it very helpful for entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much. Khaled, would you like to continue? And the reason why I'm cutting a little bit short, because we're short on time, and we are behind schedule actually. When we started 1 hour late, and we don't want to keep people here for too long. So maybe I would offer, maybe you would add something, and you would
just maybe conclude what we have discussed.
Yes, and after that maybe we could wrap up with the summaries, with the resume.
Yes. Also allow me to give 5 to 10 minutes as engagement for our audience for their comments or questions. But let me summarize what we have reached right now. It's an agile system. It's not just the agility of the SMEs. Yes, part of them are living in the victimized mindset. Yes, we agree. Some governments are doing their best, but in a wrong direction. Yes, we should face this fact. Yes, we do need an agile system. It's not just SMEs, it's not just governments, it's not just agencies, it's the whole system needs to move to the agility as a mindset. Allow me to give the mic to whoever our audience would like to comment. I go ahead and...
Thank you very much. My name is Tania Ocampo from Mexico. As an SME in Mexico, sorry, I couldn't relate more to everything you said. I'm really grateful to be here, and I studied marketing at university, so I made my internship in an accelerator in Mexico, and I've seen all these scenes, like how government has transformed like this, everything going to training for SMEs, to actually hearing us and actually making these programs. That's why I am here actually. So I won a pitch project there, so that's why I'm here. But I think that we are still missing a lot. And everything you said, I was like really interested. The agile mindset, I think that it has to be all over, not only SMEs but also in the government, and making more market channels for SMEs. So thank you very much. I was really grateful for hearing you.
Thank you. Would you like to?
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Maureen Meda from Zimbabwe. I'm an entrepreneur in SME. Recently, just before we came in, I was elected Harare CBD Chamber Secretary General for SMEs. True? Thank you, thank you. Also, I'm the first woman in my country as an agent. I do enrollment and promotion of international education. We recruit students for internal and external, in and outside our country. And I'm the first one to be accredited as an entrepreneur. Number two, I've been given a contract by the government as an SME because I've tried by all means to follow the rules and regulations to register everything. I'm compliant. That's all I can say. ISO certification is coming very soon. And right now, just before we came, I got a contract that I need to have dealership in supply my country, especially schools with laptops, computers. And now I'm quite grateful for each and every one of you, what you've been speaking. Maybe I'll go back here with an answer, and probably I'll go back with my dealership certificate with aid of you. Thank you.
I mean, if as a result of this roundtable, we will help at least one business, I mean, we have done a great job. Thank you very much for your feedback.
May I just add something? There's this concept that is very important, and what you just said, and this is something that also needs to be embraced by governments, by everyone in the ecosystem: customer centrism. How do you be customer centric? How do you listen to who you're serving and know what's required, whether you're a startup or an SME or something? And I think, Hassan, you've been talking about this a lot, is how do I listen to what they need, and how can I provide what they need? How can I connect them? Or is it a policy, or is it a network, or is it an event that needs to happen so everyone gets connected and is served in the best way possible? So I'm just throwing that.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Abdullahi Abdul Majid. I work with the Kwara State government. I am a reform champion for the Ease of Doing Business Council. So basically what we have a responsibility to do is to stimulate the investment environment. And then largely our focus is on SMEs. And I listened to Isan with rapt attention, and of course the other issues that were used to wrap that up. And one of my takeaways has to do with the fact that there's a need for governments to disrupt the normal way that governments operate. There's a lot of frustration in trying to, set policies, get government to implement those policies, get it to gain traction, and get SMEs to be able to, benefit from the full scale of what, that brings. Now, we're trying to do something similar to what, he spoke about. We cannot continue to put these policies in place and expect that the SMEs will just catch up. It's going to take a lot of time. So, we were thinking of setting up an SME park, something that can create an ecosystem. The geographical space that we have a mandate over is quite large. We cannot fix all the binding constraints overnight. We don't have the resources. The political will might also not be there. So we're trying to see how we can do something on a small scale, and then we use that like a pilot. And so I was wondering if we could get some ideas that can help us, make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, and maybe roundtable. From our with limited resources, with limited capacity, what I would offer you is to do. First of all, it is necessary to. We have, like, for example, many of us might have a database of all the SMEs and stuff for efficient communication. The communication should be two-way. That's essential. Another thing to mention is that with limited resources, you can conduct like SME startup idea contests. And with limited resources, of course, when policy usually comes afterwards, because it usually takes long for it to be in place, you can have certain tools such as market research provided by your agency or the organization. I mean, it's not as costly as other things. It doesn't require some legal framework changes and stuff. You can have certain, let's say, if after this contest, it will stimulate people to start thinking about doing business, because they will know that it will be supported by the government or by the agency. For example, residentship in some techno park, or I don't know, or incubators, or all those kind of things. Of course, I mean, implementation of big tools, stimulation tools, it requires political will in the first place. But without that in place, I mean, you should be more creative, again, be entrepreneur yourself, and dealing with this situation, you have to consider tackling an issue, solving an issue with minimum resources applied. So that's what like right now. Yeah, maybe some can add something.
Yeah. Again, maybe I can share an example to make it a less practical as well. When we started in 2002, we had two main policies. I mean, we didn't start with all of these programs like financing and training and everything. We had one policy that says whoever starts through Dubai SME will be exempted from paying any government fees. And we acted as a single window for the government. So entrepreneur came to us. We used to guide them through the process, ensure that they know what they're doing. And we gave them that exempted trade license. They have to renew it for 5 years with us without paying any government fees. That was the first policy we did. The second one was the one I mentioned, the public procurement allocation. So this was actually the vision of the leadership. So it's like, I make it easy for you to start. I'll also give you an opportunity to get a contract. So policy-wise, this was the decision from the leadership. But as we mentioned, there should be a clear political will. It should be true. It's not a piece of paper. What we did with many of the SMEs, I mean, again, this is a culture. I don't know if in most countries such cultures exist, where, for example, if the government announces an RFP or a bid, many of the SMEs, they were reluctant. They said, what we say, it's pre-cooked. They already agreed to give it to someone, but they're doing this just to show that we follow the process. And we struggled with the SMEs to show that, no, this is not the story. And we actually did internally a couple of actual studies to show that what we called internally the social capital of the entrepreneur and the procedural somehow capital or capabilities. So maybe, yes, I can say 20 years ago, you need to do this matchmaking events, you need to become a friend of that guy in the government so you get the contract. But the whole thing has shifted because currently you have more transparency. Even government employees, they know that if you can provide properly with the right quality, and it's not about winning the contract, it's about delivering the contract properly with the, again, proper metrics, requirements, technical requirements, aftercare of the service. So you need to act as a proper supplier. But we struggled to show this. But what helped us was there was a clear political will to show that this is the real way. There is no what we call wasta anymore. Wasta is having that special link with somebody. And the system works. You need to show that the system works and that everyone respects the system. But a policy by itself or a law by itself will not change.
Without execution, it's just a piece of paper or a file. With adding to what you're saying, of course, that's why the cultural aspect was very important to mention, and it was among the topics that Khalid announced. So, for example, there is also an issue about the communication and like information asymmetry in terms of the government between the government and SMEs. So there is another project that we're working on, and we believe in that project, and of course it reflects the political will in order to develop SMEs. So what we do, we are changing our mindset, and we treat SMEs as customers. So that also depicts what you're saying. And I think it was Japanese, yeah, the Kenichi Omae, I think, who was the customer stands in the top of the train. So that's how we want to treat our SMEs. And by that, we should create a certain level of transparency, so that they know that by opening up to the government, they will just benefit from that. And that's when we thought about this. I mean, we fly Turkish Airlines all the time, and we have Azerbaijan Airlines, but Turkish Airlines has, of course, a wider, compared to us all. Sorry, I'm not mentioning Emirates. Yeah. So with Turkish Airlines, there is like a normal loyalty miles program, and when you're a classic, elite, and stuff, so it gives you some perks. Yeah. So when you're a gold member or a silver member of this community, you get access to certain, like, let's say, supporting tools, or you can even meet the Minister of Economy who would like to, I mean, you are the elite of business, even though the size of your business doesn't matter. I mean, as long as you're transparent, as long as you're successful in terms of application, like, I mean, success is very subject, is very relative understanding. So that's the concept that we're working on right now, and we believe that the communication, as Isam said, as we mentioned several times, is essential. So when there is trust, there is a group work, there is a teamwork between the government and SMEs. That's when the things starts to get going, and without political will. Because every government should and they will understand the importance of SME in the economy. I mean, this is the days of natural resources-based economies, they are far gone. And now is the era of SMEs, and that's why we're talking about these SMEs. So maybe, yes, please.
Thank you. I'm Anya. I'm a CEO and founder of a company called Kagera. So we actually help oil and gas managers and petrochemical managers to minimize the risk and maximize safety with machine learning. And it's really wonderful that you mentioned transparency and execution, because in our company we have a clear vision and we are fast executing. That's one of the things how we had a unique vision than others. And my question was to Assam, because we are in this region and working with some of the clients from here. We first worked with Qatar and Egypt, and you mentioned that you had projects or business cases with companies here. Is there a program for oil and gas kind of cooperation that we can show the results, and then they can see, okay, this is interesting for us or it's not? And also for a company that's coming from Europe, what are let's say, how we can easily set up the companies here, and could we, if we set up it here, can we work then also with clients from Qatar, also for clients from Saudi Arabia. So those are my two questions. Thank you.
It's a market access question, applicable. Thank you. Market penetration, yeah, please.
Okay, again, I'll try to maybe pinpoint some things and then we can have the discussion later on. I mean, there are different ways of support for setting up the business. Of course, there are different channels. You have the mainland, the free zone. Again, this requires us to understand exactly the different needs of the company. If you want to access the market regionally, but you're not focusing on the local market by itself, maybe a free zone office can help you to be there and access. Actually, a lot of the companies are doing this because they start in Dubai as a hub and they access the whole region, even reaching to North Africa and the East. In terms of sector specific, as you said, we do have, and currently, if you're talking about contracts or opportunities with like oil and gas companies or similar sectors, we have agreements at different levels. So we have something with the local government which allocates, as I said, the 10% procurement to the SMEs. But in each sector, if the law does not apply, we have MOUs. We usually have a certain understanding with that company to ensure that we can qualify these local members. Again, it depends on the sector. If you are a service provider, then there are other service providers, and each company will have different criteria. For example, I'm in the oil sector, I have this local content policy. I need to work with local SMEs or companies that employ local employees. If it's manufacturing and you have products, then I have priority for made in UAE products. So every sector will have its own criteria. But the good thing here is you can somehow map it clearly and decide where do you want to focus. So for example, if you can move a certain, I don't know, manufacturing here or ensure that certain added value is done in the country, then you might qualify. And the formula for each sector is clear. You can map it. If you're in the service industry, then you need to employ local talent to show that you're also committed to the country, and then this will help you to get more points to qualify. But understanding the formula is nothing really difficult about it. It's just not, you need to dig deep on the entities and the policies they follow. And you can reach out anytime and can guide you.
Thank you. May I ask you a quick question? For you and Leila and in Botswana? Nagula, no, your country is Zimbabwe. Namibia, I'm sorry. My question to you from your sector is, what are your strategies for attracting investors? Obviously, you can do so much to help SMEs in the marketplace or to create a responsive marketplace. But obviously, you want to attract investment in order to continuously stimulate the economy. What are your strategies? What I'd like to know.
Maybe I should answer, yeah, for Azerbaijan. I mean, generally, if you see the trend all over the world now everybody, like every developing economy, is about attracting investment. So, and Azerbaijan is also the case. Just not going to bore you for too long, but we, for past 15 years, we have 300 billion was invested in Azerbaijan, and half of it was foreign investment. So today we have a clear mechanism. For example, we have a certain certification for investors with exemptions from tax. I mean, more or less the tools are the same as everywhere. So this is tax exemption and other supporting mechanisms that give the investors the opportunity to benefit from. Another thing is that, as I said, we have these bilateral contracts, agreements with 50 different countries that simplify the procedure of transfer of capital and avoidance of double taxation in that. In addition to that, it's about possibilities, geographical attractiveness. And for example, in Azerbaijan, there is a unique selling proposition, as we say, as everybody says. It's the south-north and between west and east, so we're on the crossroads. So geographically, that's very important to mention. And another thing also is that at government level, for example, a certain geopolitical projects are taking place. For example, a landline from Asia to Europe, the transportation corridor is being practically being built, and it is also diversified because we have 2 routes like that. So it all creates opportunities. And another very important that I would like to stress, the information that I would like to draw your attention to is recently, like 2 years ago, we have liberated 20% of our lands, which are full of natural resources in terms of mining. They are very suitable for tourism, and we have possibilities for business in there. So that's how it's being communicated. But also we have some government entities who are focused on investment attraction. And what we do is we are very active in terms of our participation in exhibitions, in fairs. We organize them in Azerbaijan. So it's a team play work, and you cannot strike only with, let's say, with one weapon. You have to do it, and it doesn't give an immediate result. I mean, so I hope I've answered your question. So would you like to answer?
Thank you very much. I think for us, starting number one is dealing exactly with what you were struggling with, realizing that I'm from Namibia. Namibia is not the first country that comes to everybody's mind when we talk about Africa. So many people actually use Namibia and they say, what? Where are you? Where is it? So that is the first thing that we have to do. So I believe that, of course, Namibia is the best country in the world and the best country in Africa, but nobody knows about where it is. So getting people to know about Namibia is the first thing. And it is a very, very beautiful country. So yes, the geographic location of Namibia is superb. We are between Angola and South Africa, Botswana on the side, and there's Atlantic Ocean on the side. So actually from Namibia to Europe, to North America, to South America, to Asia, it's almost the location is the perfect location. When you talk about green hydrogen, which is the new word that everybody is talking about of decarbonization, Namibia has got a place where we've got the place where the perfect combination of wind and solar is. And therefore we are probably one of the top 2 countries or top 3 countries in the world where green hydrogen is involved. Because where other countries have got sun and no wind, or others have got wind and no sun, we've got both, and we've got them at the same location. So we have got actually natural resources, which are not only the diamonds that we have from a gem diamond, we have got the best in the world and so forth. It's about wind, and when it comes again to green hydrogen, Namibia is the second least densely populated country in the world, which means we have got huge tracts of land and a few population, which means if you need to put wind farms and so forth, you've got access to land. And we've got peace and stability. 3 changes in government over the last 30 years, no issues with regard to peace and stability, democracy that has been standing for over the years. So from a perfect combination, we have it, and that is what we need to sell to the world. Yes, we talk about incentives, but that is probably an added bonus. It's not our core message. We know that countries and everybody is killing themselves over with incentive and tax, whatever, eroding the tax base. It's important, we need to consider it, but that is not our first selling point. Our first selling point is the fact of who we are, the location, the natural resources, the peace and stability, the rule of law, and everything else that we have to offer to the world, and that's what we are taking to investors.
Thank you so much. It was amazing. Yeah.
Right. Again, perhaps similar to Namibia, Brunei is just a small country, and our population is just less than 500,000. You know, with just nearly about 5,000 square kilometers, of land area, Of course, again, we do believe that we have our own, unique selling or value proposition to attract investors. There is not an FDI company. We're purely SME. Yeah, we do have our economic development board who looks after attracting FDIs into Brunei. But again, I mean, if you know exactly where Brunei is in terms of its geographical location, I mean, we are right at the center of ASEAN. You know, we're just, you know, I mean, 2 hours flight. You know, I mean, with our ASEAN neighboring countries. So I mean, I can say that we are politically stable. You know, I mean, we have a monarch system. We don't have any, you know, what we call that, elections. Government is very stable. Again, I mean, Brunei is very green. You know, I mean, we preserve, you know, I mean, about 75% of our land area, I mean, untouched. You know, for conservation purposes. We have clean water, so we don't have major natural disaster. Okay, I mean, I think that's a key factor there. I mean, inviting foreign direct investment, you know, I mean, to build a factory in Brunei, perhaps, you know, I mean, with no disaster, you know, natural disaster. I think that's you know, I mean, you know, I mean. You can score high, you know, I mean, in that area. So yeah, but of course, at the end of the day, I mean, we have to be very, what call that, focused in terms of what sectors or what industry that we want to develop, you know, that we want to focus on. So, for example, I mean, our national priority in terms of the sectors, we're looking at 5 sectors. For example, manufacturing of say food in halal, because again, Brunei is a devout, you know, Muslim country. Our halal is very stringent, you know. So ICT, you know, again, Brunei is very dominantly, our economy is dominated by oil and gas, you know, very strong in oil and gas. So these are the sectors that we want to promote, and this is where, you know, when it comes to attracting investors, you know, it has to be aligned with the national objectives in terms of the economic development. So, you know, once that is, you know, in place, then this is where how we can work very closely with the MNCs, with the investors in terms of how they can provide spin-offs, I mean, for our SMEs. You know, at least, you know, there's local content that they need to consider, you know, when it comes to investing into Brunei. And I think that's very important because, you know, our MSMEs, our local businesses need to be given that opportunity to service the industry. I mean, through participating in the supply chains, you know. So that's how we work very closely with the different agencies in terms of how we want to promote, you know, yeah, I mean, both FDIs as well as SME development.
Dear friends, so we have 8 minutes left.
So yeah, it's an amazing discussion. Just allow me to pass only 30 seconds for each one to give us his closure statement or closure advice. So let me start again.
30 seconds.
Yeah, it was really an interesting discussion with you today all. Thank you very much for this. I would like to add on your word when you mentioned Naqib, that we will need an agile system, and I would like to say we will need an agile system and an agile culture. And I would say, based on our discussion today, the takeaway for me personally that the agile culture should be in both sides. So whether in both sides, in the governmental side and in addition to the SMEs side as well. It's actually COVID-19 has brought us to a complete, unique and different culture that we have never experienced before. So we need to be very agile in terms of if we are talking about the side of the government. You mentioned a lot of many different really aspects that was raised today. How the government can support the SMEs, such as opening access to markets, how they can really supporting them, promoting, increasing the awareness about the country, promoting the attractive investment opportunities. On the other side, we also mentioned that the private sector, or the SMEs, entrepreneurs, they have also to change the mindset, their mindset, the culture, and to move to the agile culture. which means that we can, we mentioned different points today. We said we can keep the concept as it is, but change let's say the implementation of the concepts. We can also move quickly and fast. We can we don't need to stay in the victim behavior. You mentioned that it's all about that. It's something in the mindset of the entrepreneur that we never give up. So we continue, keep going. So I think it's a complete culture, very unique and very different. And this is what just we need to adopt and to move on.
Thank you. I didn't cut Narmin because we didn't let her talk during the round table, but she has been talking for 2 minutes. So for the rest, it's only 30 seconds.
I will do the 30 seconds. So first of all, thank you so much. I believe the closing remarks for me would be that we all have a responsibility. As I said, I think of us from 4 roles. We have the enticer, the educator, the enabler, and the entrepreneur. We're all working towards our economies and towards every single person within that economy to be empowered with knowledge, with resources, and with definitely with the ability to be able to contribute to the bigger picture. So crossing access to markets is a facilitated end or a goal towards the end, and everyone can have a role within that.
Thank you. 30 seconds. Great.
You're timing it.
Yeah.
Pressure. All right, okay. I think, yeah, I mean, while, it is still, very important for us to provide that, ecosystem, for our business to flourish. I think my advice to businesses, having, observe, making some observations or observations of many years. I think you really need to understand your business position, okay? Where your business is today. I mean, if you think that you are doing well, yes, you can continue. But if you think that your business is not going anywhere, you may want to review your strategy, your business model. I mean, go back to square one and see if it's really worth, starting from A, or perhaps, So I think really understanding your business position is critical. I mean, for you to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it has been a great discussion. What I have realized is, of course, while our challenges in Namibia are unique and they may relate it to our history, the solutions are global. And whatever it is that we want to do and need to do, somebody somewhere has been there and they have done that. And therefore, I've learned a lot from all of you today, and I will definitely be in contact to make sure that we can share experiences and we can learn from your knowledge and see how we can implement it back home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So let me start. It was a great pleasure, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm gonna be a records man on the legs. Yeah, 5 seconds. So that's it. This is.
Okay, I would like to thank you all again. We learned a lot, we shared a lot, and maybe this was a good example that, as you said, we need to reach out, we need to be dynamic, we need to understand each other, not as government, but also governments and SMEs. Having the last day at Expo, I think I want you all to go get your Expo passport, enjoy the last day of Expo, get the stamps from the different countries, and keep this as a memory. Thank you.
And start on you, please. There you go. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here to speak. I live here, I work here. Thank you to the UAE for the amazing business environment, and also thank you to my colleagues for sharing and imparting your knowledge and experience on it. Cheers.
Well, thank you all. Everyone was an added value. We learned a lot. It's our dream. Everyone has his own job to do, and I believe we'll get out of this discussion with a clear role what to do in our next step. Thank you so much for being here.